Welcome to the Inner Code, a space where ancient wisdom meets modern science and where your inner world becomes the blueprint for the life you've always dreamed of. You didn't land here by accident. Something within you, a quiet whisper, a longing for more, has brought you to this moment. And here, we go beyond theory. We go beyond surface-level motivation. Together, we step into the deep waters of creation itself. Today, we're doing something extraordinary. We're weaving together the timeless teachings of Neville Goddard, the master of imagination and feeling, with the groundbreaking discoveries of Dr. Joe Dispenza, the pioneer of mind-body transformation. These two worlds, one rooted in spiritual law, the other in neuroscience, merge into a single, unstoppable force for change. We'll explore how your mind and heart are not just tools, but architects of reality. How your thoughts and emotions, when elevated and directed with intention, rewire the brain, recondition the body, and open the door to entirely new versions of yourself. And how, when you marry this of living in principle of living in the end, you no longer just hope for change, you embody it, you become it. This isn't just inspiration, it's transformation you can feel in your very cells. It's the moment you realize you've been the creator all along. So before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to join a growing community of conscious creators. And if this resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to remember their own power. Now, take a breath, soften your shoulders, and open your mind. We are about to enter the place where the inner world is crafted, and from there, everything changes. Close your eyes for a moment, and imagine that everything you see, hear, and touch in your life, every circumstance, every relationship, every challenge and triumph, began first in a place invisible to the eyes. This is the truth Neville Goddard and Joe Dispenza, both in their own ways, devoted their lives to teaching. Your inner world is not a mirror of the outer world. It is the blueprint from which the outer world is constructed. Neville, with his poetic certainty, called imagination the only reality. He told us that what we assume and feel to be true will harden into fact. Joe, with the precision of a scientist, revealed that your thoughts and emotions are signals to your brain and body, rewriting the very biology that shapes your actions and perceptions. Two different languages, one unshakable truth. When you fully understand this, not as a concept but as a living experience, the world stops happening to you and begins happening through you. You no longer live as a victim of circumstances, but as the architect of them. Think about it. Every building, every work of art, every invention began in someone's mind. But here's the part we often miss. So did every illness, every repeated mistake, every limitation we carry. Most of us are creating unconsciously, replaying the same inner programs until life becomes an endless loop. Joe Dispenza calls this the habit of being yourself, the repeated firing of the same thoughts, producing the same emotions, which signal the same actions, which bring about the same results. The brain becomes a record of the past, and the body a servant to that past. Neville Goddard, long before neuroscience could prove it, was saying the same thing. To change your life, you must change the state you habitually occupy in consciousness. You cannot plant the seeds of lack and expect a harvest of abundance. You cannot dwell in fear and expect to walk in freedom. So here's the revelation, and it's the reason you're here listening right now. You are the builder. Your thoughts are the blueprints. Your emotions are the cement. Your attention is the construction crew. The outer world will always eventually match the architecture of your inner one. Now imagine this. Every morning, before your feet even touch the floor, you're handed the pen that will script the rest of your day. Most people scribble the same chapter they wrote yesterday, same complaints, same doubts, same limitations. They don't even realize they're holding the pen. But what if you woke up tomorrow and wrote something different? What if you didn't just react to the past, but designed the future in advance? This is where the synergy of Dispenza and Goddard becomes life-altering. Joe will tell you, to change your life, you must step into a new state of being. That means generating new, elevated emotions, gratitude, love, freedom, before your circumstances give you a reason. It means breaking the cycle where your environment dictates your feelings. Instead, your feelings begin dictating your environment. Neville will tell you, once you enter this new emotional state, you must clothe yourself in the end result. Feel the wish fulfilled as though it is already yours. See it in your mind with such sensory richness that your subconscious accepts it as reality. And once it's accepted within, the outer must conform.
But let's be clear. This isn't about positive thinking plastered over a negative core. This isn't about pretending to be happy while your nervous system still runs the program of fear. The work is deeper. It's cellular. Joe Dispenza speaks of neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to literally rewire itself based on new thoughts and experiences. Every time you choose a new thought, every time you generate a new emotion, you're carving new pathways in your brain, like a river changing its course. Neville spoke of something just as profound: state. He taught that your state of consciousness is the sum total of your beliefs, feelings, and assumptions in the present moment. It's like the channel you're tuned to on a radio. You cannot receive the broadcast of abundance if you're tuned to frequency of lack. The bridge between their teachings is this: Dispenza gives you the tools to change the wiring. Goddard tells you what to wire in. Think of your mind as a fertile field. Joe helps you clear the weeds, prepare the soil, and make it ready for planting. Neville hands you the seeds, vivid images and feelings of the life you want, and tells you to plant them as if the harvest is inevitable. It is inevitable, because the moment you consistently dwell in the feeling of your desired reality, your subconscious, which runs 95% of your life, begins to accept it as the only truth. Your body aligns, your thoughts align, your actions align, and life starts to present opportunities and synchronicities that match this new blueprint. You are the architect. The question is, what will you design? Picture your subconscious mind as an ancient operating system, one you've been running mostly without question for years. It's made of habits, emotional reactions, and stories about who you are and what life is. Some of these were programmed in childhood, others reinforced by repetition, but most of them you didn't consciously choose. Dispenza tells us that the body, through repetition, becomes the mind. What starts as a thought becomes a feeling. That feeling leads to an action, and over time your body memorizes this cycle better than your conscious brain does. You wake up each day, and before you even think about it, you're already being the same person you were yesterday, thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, and therefore creating the same life. It's not that change is impossible. It's that you're trying to create a new future while dragging the past into it. To break free, you must interrupt the pattern. You must become so present, so aware, that you can see the old self for what it is, a set of memorized programs, and choose to create something new. This is where the science becomes magic. Neuroplasticity is your birthright. It means your brain is not a fixed structure. It is malleable, adaptable, ready to rewire itself based on the input you give it. Each time you think a new thought and combine it with an elevated emotion, you fire and wire new neural connections. These connections, repeated often enough, become the foundation for a new personality and a new personal reality. Joe Dispenza's meditations aren't just moments of relaxation. They are installations of a new self. You step away from the noise of the external world, close your eyes, and enter the realm where your inner world is more real than anything outside of you. There you practice the future you desire, not as a wish but as an experience that already exists. And here's the key: you must feel it. The brain doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a physical one. If you imagine yourself standing on the shore of the ocean, feeling the warm sun on your skin, hearing the waves crash, smelling the salt in the air, your brain begins firing as though you were actually there. Add to this the elevated emotions of gratitude, freedom, love, and joy, and your body begins producing the chemistry of that future. Over time, your body becomes so familiar with this new state of being that it begins to believe it is your reality before it manifests. And when it does manifest, it feels less like a miracle and more like the natural next step, because you've already lived it inside yourself. Joe calls this breaking the habit of being yourself.
It's the art of moving from the known to the unknown, from the predictable past into the quantum field of possibility. The known is safe but suffocating. It's the loop you've been running. The unknown is uncomfortable but limitless. It's the place where anything can happen. To enter it, you must let go of your familiar identity long enough for a new one to emerge. And here's where Neville Goddard's brilliance becomes the missing piece. Joe gives you the method to dismantle the old self and wire in the new. Neville tells you how to define that new self so clearly, so vividly, that the subconscious has no choice but to accept it. Let's pause on this truth. Your subconscious doesn't care whether something is true or false, only whether you accept it as true. Most people accept the truth of their limitations without question. They rehearse them every day in thought and speech. I'm not good with money. I always attract the wrong people. My health has never been great. Each of these is an instruction to the subconscious, and it obeys faithfully. Joe teaches you to notice these thoughts and interrupt them. Neville teaches you to replace them with states that reflect your desired reality. I am a magnet for abundance. I live in harmony with those who love and respect me. My body is vibrant and self-healing. But here's the subtlety. You don't just say these words like a parrot. You feel them, you inhabit them. You live there in imagination until they feel as natural as your own name. This is why combining Dispenza's elevated emotions with Neville's living in the end produces such powerful results. When you reach a coherent heart state, where your heart and brain are in sync, you open a channel to the subconscious that is far more receptive. In this state, when you imagine your desired reality, you're not simply daydreaming, you're encoding a new program into the very fabric of your being. And as this new program takes root, your perception of reality shifts. You begin to notice opportunities you once overlooked. You attract people and circumstances aligned with your new state. The synchronicities multiply, not because the world has suddenly changed, but because you have. There's a story Joe often tells about people who heal themselves from illnesses deemed incurable by doctors. It's not luck, it's not denial, it's that they changed their internal environment so completely, their thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, that the body had no choice but to follow. Neville would say the same about any form of manifestation. Change the assumption you live from, and the outer must obey. It's law. So the real question is, are you ready to stop being the person you've been and start being the person you truly desire to become? Because the tools are here. The path is here. All that's left is for you to walk it. If Joe Dispenza is the scientist of transformation, Neville Goddard is the poet of it. Where Joe speaks of brainwaves and neurochemistry, Neville speaks of states of consciousness and the eternal I am. Yet when you strip away the language, they are pointing to the same truth. You must become the version of yourself who already has what you desire, inside, before it can ever appear outside. Neville's core revelation is deceptively simple. Feeling is the secret. Not the fleeting emotions that come and go with circumstances, but the deep, sustained inner knowing that what you desire is already yours. He insisted that imagination is not a playground for fantasy, but the very creative power of God within you. In fact, he called imagination spiritual sensation, the unseen substance from which the seen world is shaped. If you can see it in your mind and feel it in your heart as though it were real now, then, by spiritual law, it must express itself in your life. But here's where most people falter. They think of what they want as something out there, something to be achieved, chased, and earned. Neville flips this entirely. He says you must start at the end. You must live in imagination as though you are already the person you want to be. Not someday, not when the evidence shows up. Now.
To live in the end means to bypass the logic of the senses. The senses will tell you you don't have it yet. Your bank account, your mirror, your relationships, they might all scream the opposite of your desire. But you choose to dwell in the reality of the wish fulfilled regardless, because you understand that your inner state precedes the outer fact. Neville often illustrated this with a simple formula. Define the desire clearly, not vaguely.
Not "I want more money," but "I am financially free, living in the home I love, with the ease and joy that come with abundance." Enter a state akin to sleep. Slow your mind, relax your body, let the analytical voice grow quiet. This is when the subconscious is most open. Construct a scene that implies the wish fulfilled, not the moment of getting it, but the natural afterglow of already having it. Infuse the scene with sensory richness and emotion. Hear the voices, feel the textures, breathe the air of that reality. Repeat until it feels natural. The goal isn't effort, it's saturation, until the inner world feels more real than the outer. This is not about straining or forcing. It's not about convincing yourself of something you secretly believe is impossible. It's about shifting identity. You are no longer the person who wants the thing, you are the person who has it. The person for whom it is simply normal. And here's where Dispenza's work becomes the amplifier. Joe teaches that when you generate elevated emotions, gratitude, joy, love, and sustain them, your body begins to live as if the future is already here. When you overlay Neville's wish-fulfilled scene onto that elevated state, you are merging two of the most potent forces of creation: coherent emotional energy and precise imaginative direction. Think of it like a bow and arrow. Dispenza's teachings are the strength you build in the bow, the coherent heart, the elevated energy, the focused presence. Neville's teachings are the aim, the target you choose, the specific state you decide to occupy. Without the strength of the bow, your arrow falls short. Without the aim, your arrow has no direction. But together, you hit the bullseye of creation. Neville was unshakable in his conviction. He spoke as though the unseen was more solid than the seen, because to him it was. He urged his listeners to ignore the evidence of the senses and to dare to assume the reality they desired. And the word dare was deliberate, because it does take courage. It takes courage to turn away from what is and live in the unseen. It takes courage to feel wealthy when your pockets are empty, to feel loved when your heart is bruised, to feel healthy when your body is in pain. But the paradox is this: you are not lying to yourself. You are telling yourself a deeper truth, the truth of the seed, not the sprout. The seed contains the tree in full. The moment you plant it in the soil of your subconscious and water it with feeling, the outcome is inevitable. You may not know how or when it will sprout, but you know it will. Neville's method, when practiced faithfully, begins to dissolve the old identity. The person who once said, "I can't," is replaced by the person who quietly knows it's already done. And when that shift happens, when your inner conversations change, when you stop arguing for your limitations and start rehearsing your fulfilled desire, the outer world must respond. This isn't wishful thinking. This is law. Joe Dispenza's research would say, you've signaled new instructions to your genes, altered the chemistry in your brain, and reconditioned your body to a new mind. Neville would say, you've entered a new state of consciousness, and all states seek expression. Two languages, one reality. The key is consistency. Not once, not occasionally, daily. Moment by moment, returning to the state you've chosen. And here's the beautiful part. The more you dwell there, the easier it becomes. The state begins to carry you, rather than you having to carry the state. This is the point where miracles become normal. This is where the lines between science and spirituality dissolve, where two seemingly different roads merge into a single golden pathway of creation. Joe Dispenza gives us the mechanics, how thoughts and emotions signal the body and brain, how new neural pathways are built, how the heart's coherence amplifies intention. Neville Goddard gives us the blueprint, the specific state to inhabit, the scene to rehearse, the feeling that seals the desire into the subconscious. When you combine the two, you don't just meditate, you install. You don't just visualize, you embody. You don't just hope, you become. Here's the formula in living form. Begin with presence. Step away from distractions.
Breathe slowly. Let your awareness settle into the present moment. This is Dispenza's foundation, pulling your energy away from the past and the predictable future and anchoring it here, where all creation happens. Enter heart coherence. Focus your attention on your heart. Breathe into it as though it were expanding with every inhale. Consciously generate an elevated emotion, gratitude, joy, love. Let it flood your body until you feel lighter, more open, more alive. Engage the imagination. Now, guided by Neville, step into the scene of your fulfilled desire. See it, hear it, feel it with all your senses. Don't imagine the getting, imagine the having. Not the wedding proposal, but the casual morning coffee with your spouse years later. Not the moment of receiving the money, but the everyday ease of financial freedom. Infuse the state with emotion. Overlay the elevated emotion from step 2 onto the scene from step 3. Let the gratitude and joy soak the image until it feels inevitable. Your body must feel as though this reality is already here. Seal it with identity. Finish by affirming your new state with I am statements. Not to convince yourself, but to acknowledge what is already true in consciousness. I am abundant. I am loved. I am healthy. Speak them as you would your own name, with no question, no hesitation. This fusion is powerful because it works on every level. Dispenza's method rewires your nervous system. Neville's method redefines your inner state. Together they align the body, mind, and spirit toward the same end. And that's when reality begins to bend in your favor. Real-world stories prove this over and over. There's the woman who healed from years of chronic illness after months of practicing heart coherence while living daily in the scene of herself, hiking meeting trails with ease. She didn't visualize hospitals or doctors giving her the all clear. She visualized the wind in her hair, the earth under her feet, the muscles in her legs carrying her forward with strength. There's the man who multiplied his income not by obsessing over the numbers, but by embodying the state of someone who always had more than enough. He would sit each morning, generate gratitude until tears filled his eyes, and then rehearse the feeling of paying for anything he wanted without a second thought. Within months, unexpected opportunities began arriving, and the how took care of itself. These are not anomalies. They are the predictable outcome of aligned creation. And here's the thing. You don't need to know how it will come to pass. Neville warned against forcing the means. The how is the domain of the unseen intelligence. Call it God, the quantum field, the subconscious, that responds to the seed you plant. Your only role is to plant the seed with precision and water it with persistence. Joe echoes this. He speaks of surrendering to the unknown, trusting the field of infinite possibilities to orchestrate the details. You generate the state, you hold it, and you step into the day expecting the unexpected. This is where the magic happens. Because life will start to speak back to you. You'll overhear conversations that answer your silent questions. You'll stumble upon opportunities that align perfectly with your vision. People will appear as if sent by design, and deep down you'll know. You didn't just get lucky. You aligned. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes, and soon you stop asking if it works, because your life becomes the proof. This synergy also reveals something profound. You are not creating from nothing. You are tuning into a version of reality that already exists in potential. Neville would call it the state. Joe would call it a quantum possibility. Both agree. The moment you align with it in consciousness, it begins moving toward you as you move toward it. And so each morning becomes a sacred meeting with the architect within you. You wake, you align your heart, you rehearse your scene, you step into your identity, and you live the day as that version of yourself. You may not see the result instantly, but you are the result instantly. From here, the external is simply catching up. There comes a moment in every creator's journey when the question shifts from "Can I do this?" to "Who else could I possibly be?" When you've practiced the synergy of Joe Dispenza's science and Neville Goddard's law, day after day, something irreversible happens. The old self, the one held together by memories, fears, and secondhand beliefs, begins to dissolve, and in its place emerges a self that is not bound by the past, not chained to circumstance, and not afraid of the unknown. You begin to understand, not as a theory, but as a living reality, that the outer world is nothing more than a shadow of the inner one.
that everything you will ever need, create, or experience begins first as an internal alignment of thought, feeling, and state. This is freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want in reaction to the world, but the freedom to generate the world you want from within yourself.
The empowered future is not a place you arrive at someday. It's a choice you make now. It's a state you enter now. And once you step into it, you carry it with you into every moment, every interaction, every possibility. This is what Neville meant when he said, "Change your conception of yourself and you will automatically change the world in which you live." And it's what Joe means when he says, "You can't wait for your healing to feel whole. You have to feel whole to create your healing." So how do you live from here? First, you stop making the outer world the ruler of your inner state. You stop waiting for the evidence before you feel the reality of your desire. You understand that feeling it first is what causes the evidence to appear. Second, you commit to the daily practice. This is not a one-time burst of inspiration. This is a lifestyle. Every day you enter presence, align your heart, rehearse your end scene, and walk through the day as that self. Third, you trust the process. You release the need to control every detail. You know that the field, the infinite intelligence, is working with you, arranging the perfect set of circumstances. The empowered creator doesn't get immediate when the harvest isn't immediate. The empowered creator knows the seed has already taken root, and they keep watering it with faith, gratitude, and unwavering focus until the moment the sprout breaks the soil. And when it does, they are not surprised. They are not shocked, because they have already lived this moment 1,000 times in the inner world. This is where life becomes a conversation between you and the unseen. You send out an inner declaration, "I am abundant, I am loved, I am free," and life echoes it back in tangible form. The echo may take days, weeks, or months, but it always comes. From this place, even challenges lose their power to shake you. You understand that they are not plugs, but bridges, opportunities to deepen your alignment, to reaffirm your state, to prove to yourself that you can hold the feeling regardless of circumstance. And in holding it, you transcend the circumstance entirely. So let's ask the question one last time. Who do you choose to be? Not tomorrow, not once things improve. Now. Because now is the only point of power, the only moment where the future is shaped, the only doorway to the reality you desire. As you stand here at the threshold of your empowered future, remember, you are the architect. You are the dreamer and the dream. You are the scientist and the mystic. You are the seed and the harvest. Neville gave you the blueprint. Joe gave you the tools. But only you can take the step into the life you were meant to live. So take it, live it, be it, and watch as the world you once longed for begins to unfold all around you, not as a miracle you stumbled upon, but as the inevitable expression of who you have become. If these words have lit something within you, let this be the moment you commit, not just to listening, but to living this truth. Subscribe to join a growing circle of conscious creators who are rewriting their reality from the inside out. And if you feel called to go deeper, to access exclusive materials and early viewings of every video we release, consider becoming a member of this channel. Your presence here supports this work and allows us to keep creating with intention and purpose. Because together we're not just changing ourselves, we're changing the world, one inner transformation at a time. And never forget, the journey inward is the most important journey you will ever take, because it is the only one that changes everything.